Vineyards as far as the eye can see, a seemingly endless tapestry of green. This is the Hex River Valley in the Western Cape, South Africa's oldest and largest producer of table grapes in the country. But this fertile valley has also become the site of a bitter battle between beneficiaries of government's agricultural land reform policies and a multinational accused of corruption, in cahoots with allegedly unethical senior government officials.
Yes, there was a political game that has been played.
Because they are driven by greed under the pretense of rural development and poverty alleviation.
Is agricultural land reform providing fertile ground for elite corporate capture? We're at Nanda Farm in Durans in the Hex River Valley, and since 2015, Special Assignment has been investigating allegations levelled by beneficiaries of government's land reform policies against a multinational fruit exporter. The beneficiaries accuse the fruit exporter of swindling them out of the fruits of their labour. The company is the Dutch multinational called the South African Fruit Exporters, or SAFE, and its BEE partner, Bono.
They very astutely used the rhetoric of land reform to sell themselves as an effective partner. The Bono, of course, is a black empowerment partner to SAFE, and they use that as a major entry point into the land reform scenario.
For several years, SAFE and Bono have been embroiled in a conflict with the farming cooperative called the Big Five. They are government-approved beneficiaries of an agricultural land reform policy called the Recapitalisation and Development Programme.
The dream was to have a successful farm, a model of black excellence in the valley. A farm that will take everybody on the farm to the highest levels of development.
The location of the story takes place mainly on Nirvanda in Durans, but the real story is happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors, where decisions are taken and instructions given either verbally or via email. Instructions that are in flagrant violation of government's agricultural land reform policies. Like this email that gives a direct instruction concerning the role of the BEE company Bono on Nirvanda. This shall be explained in greater detail later on in this episode, but it is one of hundreds of internal documents unearthed by Special Assignment that point to alleged collusion and cover-ups in the Department of Rural Development. These have now been exposed in a forensic report on Nirvanda, a classified dossier that has not yet been publicly released. But Special Assignment has managed to get exclusive access to this report, and together with our ongoing investigations through interviews and trails of emails and documents, the forensic report paints an alarming picture of alleged corruption not only on Nirvanda, but possibly on several other state-owned farms. But first, let us recap the background to this investigation. In 2010, the Big Five applied to become beneficiaries of government's agricultural land reform policies. In 2012, government bought the farm Nirvanda, and the Big Five were invited to apply as lessees under the Department of Rural Development's Recapitalisation and Development Programme. This is a complicated policy, otherwise known as RECAP.
Recapitalisation and development is a program to ensure that all land reform farms within South Africa, as well as privately owned farms, are productive, that there's maximum produce on each of these farms. Also to ensure that farmers are getting the necessary skills, training, particularly around the field of financial management and marketing their produce, and to ultimately be able to be independent, self-sustainable farmers.
RECAP is part of an agricultural land reform policy called the Proactive Land Acquisition Strategy. It involves the state purchasing struggling commercial farms and providing up to 50-year leases for beneficiaries. Since 2014, the recap has replaced all previous forms of funding for land reform. But in order to get government funds, beneficiaries have to take on a strategic partner, usually an agribusiness on the government's database.
In order to get funding from government, to recapitalise your land reform farm, you must have a strategic partner or a mentor. So these are people supposedly with expertise in commercial agriculture. If these arrangements are entered into honestly and there's transparency, and if there's a serious effort to spread the benefits, there may be some real advantages.
Recap has now been moved to the Agriculture Department, but since 2009, the Department of Rural Development bought around 1,500 farms countrywide for Recap, spending almost 2 billion rand. While there are certainly Recap farming success stories, the policy has also become a magnet for corruption. Out of more than 1 million hectares redistributed in all 9 provinces, government watchdog bodies estimate that about 500 million rand has been lost on fraud and wasted expenditure, pointing to a growing crisis in agricultural land reform.
Honorable Minister, there's a lot of outcry about the alleged corruption in the department, especially in the restitution and plus farms. People who want farms for leasing and are unable to access them. Some of the officials want bribe, others allocate farms to friends and relatives. Let the audit be done on the plus farms to understand who is occupying the farm, where and how that person has accessed the farm. Is there any lease agreement that has been signed, and how much is being paid for lease rentals? As
governance has slipped, and there's a lack of proper oversight, so you create the fertile ground for corruption.
Professor Ben Cousins is the chairperson of the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies, or PLAS, at the University of the Western Cape. PLAS has published widely respected research on alleged capture of land reform.
Land reform creates real opportunities for corporate players, partly because of the inexperience of government officials who have no training in agriculture, let alone in farm finance, and who are sitting ducks for players who simply outmaneuver them. I think there are instances where the state program has been captured by powerful private interests, not with the willing collusion of government, but simply through incompetence. There are other cases, however, where collusion with corrupt government officials is likely to have been the case.
If you asked the British how they felt about being the biggest cider drinkers in the world, they'd say something like this. Yes. Well, we don't know about you, but that sounds like a challenge. Challenge accepted. Get a 6-pack of Savannah Premium Cider Dry or Light 330ml handies for only $56.99 from Tops at Spar.
In previous episodes, Special Assignment brought you the story of the Big 5 farming cooperative, who were approved as beneficiaries on Nirvanda. They moved onto the farm in January 2013 under a caretaker agreement with the department until their formal approval as beneficiaries went through at national level.
We came through the front door, so I was expecting that now that we were the beneficiaries who were selected at NLEC on the 25th of July 2013, that they were supposed to be assisting us and giving us support to be able to do what we came here to do.
I came with my skills to become an asset in this farm, like all my other partners. They came, they brought their skills as their assets to grow this farm.
But more than 4 years later, the Big Five remain in limbo. Initially, they were welcomed by the department, but they have now become a thorn in government's side. To date, the recap funds have not been released, and although they were approved at national level as lessees, the Big Five have yet to receive a lease.
You see, to date we couldn't sign a lease agreement with the Big Five, so we don't have an agreement with them yet.
They have also not benefited from any of the harvests. So what went wrong?
Certain people at a certain political level felt that maybe we were the wrong people who came onto the farm. Maybe they felt that these people cannot be manipulated.
In order to understand more about this alleged manipulation, we must revisit the history of Nirvanda. In 2015, after conducting an online search for the title deeds of Nirvanda, Special Assignment was able to unpack its history of ownership. The farm Nirvanda was originally 2 portions totaling 39 hectares of a farm called De La Haye. In 2007, it was sold to a company called QuickVest for just over 7 million rand. QuickVest is a shelf company for SAFE, the company that owns 50% of Bono. SAFE had provided the previous owner, Stephanus Johannes du Toit, with an interest-free loan, but then SAFE recalled the loan, and when the du Toits could not repay it, QuickVest purchased the farm for just over 7 million rand. After it was sold to government for 19 million rand in 2012, QuickVest, or rather SAFE, remained on the farm, exporting the grapes and profiting from the harvest. And it brought Bono onto the farm as the Big Five strategic partner.
One needs to drill deeper to find the reasoning and the justification for a company farm selling 2 portions in 2012 for 19 million and then re-entering the equation with a business plan to do the further development and applying for recap.
The Department of Rural Development has not responded to Special Assignment's repeated requests for an interview, but a department official says that the practice of former owners reoccupying these farms is the norm. We have used a voice artist to protect the employee's identity.
I've seen how things are done. It's not only happening in Nirvanda. It's happening all over the country. In many cases, when the department purchases the farm, the land is transferred in the name of the department. But the former owner often remains on the farm for years, not even paying rent. And in some cases, they are not even beneficiaries. The department must implement proper procedures to effectively manage these farms.
While SAFE and Bono were paying the department a mere 10,000 rand a month in rental, Bono applied for 6.5 million rand to recap the farm. But the relationship rapidly began to sour between the Big Five and its potential strategic partner.
The strategic partner that is managing a farm with beneficiaries is supposed to give annual financial statement, audited statements, and those documents actually tell you about the liquidity of the company, or the business, whether the business is profitable or not. And these are the things that Bono/SAFE are hiding from us.
The Big Five accused SAFE and Bono of mismanagement and lack of transparency in the table grape supply chain. They requested another strategic partner. According to the recap policy, the beneficiaries are entitled to choose their own strategic partner. The strategic partner they chose in October 2013 was not Bono, but another fruit agribusiness called Carsten.
Our choice was on that particular day that, we would rather go along with Carsten because their presentation was quite telling. It was very professional.
Initially, Carsten was supposed to start in November 2013, but that was delayed until February 2014. But Bono allegedly refused to leave the farm. And an email distributed in the Western Cape office of the Rural Development Department explains why. It mentions an instruction from the former Deputy Director General of Land Reform, Vusi Mahlangu, and former Chief Director, Babalwa Magoda, that Bono must be the strategic partner on Navanda, no matter what. The explosive email was circulated in August 2012, several months before the Big Five moved into Navanda, and more than a year before they selected their strategic partner. Although production continues on Navanda, the Big Five say they have been excluded from any meaningful role on the farm.
As an agronomist, it does not make me feel good to be sitting down on a daily basis when there's a lot of work outside. Sitting not because I want to, but sitting because I am being denied to work the farm that is allocated to me.
You get to a point whereby everybody is asking, what are you doing? You keep on coming back and going to the farm, and yet there's nothing tangible that you are bringing. That on its own, it messes your mind.
For 4 years, they have repeatedly written to senior officials in the department, even to the Rural Development Minister himself, venting their frustration and requesting him to assist. The Big Five say that Minister Gugile Nkwinti did not respond directly to their pleas, but sent his head of security and personal advisor, Dumisani Lupungela, to the farm.
This guy just came into the farm, threatened us and told us that you came here through a corrupt process, and if I would do an investigation, it would be a very messy investigation. I said, excuse us?
Lupungela was once the head of the National Intelligence Agency in both the Eastern and Western Cape, before his suspension in 2002 over an allegedly improper relationship with organised crime kingpin Vito Palazzolo. He has since been linked to controversial tenders in the Eastern Cape and in mining through his directorship of Aurora, the failed mining company owned by President Zuma's nephew, Kulubuse, and the late former President Nelson Mandela's grandson, Zodwa Mandela. A former employee of the department for more than 10 years alleges that the intention was to replace the Big Five with a more compliant beneficiary, and that Lupungela allegedly played a major role. We have protected his identity and are also using a voice artist in this interview.
They want to evict the Big Five because they refuse to toe the line. Dumisani used to give security clearances in the department. He reports to no one except the minister and a close-knit group of officials. He also goes around the country picking farm projects and gives instructions that are not documented. But those instructions must be followed. That's the current environment of land reform.
He came from the minister's office. So if Dumisani is at fault, so is the minister. The minister is also at fault. The two of them takes two of them to have caused what is it we are in today.
Since 2015, Special Assignment has repeatedly offered the minister, the department and Lupungela the right of reply. They have not responded. But I made contact with another former department official who was willing to speak out. In July 2012, Inkuseli Mtwini was appointed as the Director of Land Reform in the Western Cape until his dismissal in 2013 for reasons unrelated to Nirvanda. He claims he was put under pressure to act in favour of Bono, especially after the Big Five chose Carsten as their strategic partner.
I remember the date I think it was 28th of October, I still remember. Interviewed them, then after we interviewed, then we said, okay, we left with the beneficiaries. They wrote a letter, said that they don't want Bono, they want Carsten. The same night I received a call from Bono asking me about what is happening, why we are not appointed. I said, but who told you that we are not appointed? I said, but I know that. I said, but I don't know anything, but you have to wait for the letter from Lerato, not from me.
The following day, he says he received another frantic call, this time from the Deputy Director General.
I received a call from Vusi Mahlangu asking me what happened. I said, no, the beneficiaries took the decision to appoint Carsten. and I can't change that decision.
He also mentions ANC Boerland chairman Pat Moran's involvement in the fallout over Bono.
Pat called me and said, "M2, this thing, it seems as it's out of our control. Bono has not been appointed." I said, "Pat, what? But why you are so concerned? Why I'm getting calls left and right about Bono?"
Moran did not respond to Special Assignment's request for comment.
Bono, the so-called strategic partner, is their friend. They have been recommended from the top.
The department has to see to it that the Nivanda matter has to be addressed properly and not plays these games that they are playing now.
In 2016, after relations between the Big Five and Bono continued to deteriorate, and in the wake of the first Special Assignment story on Navanda, the Investigative Directorate in the Department of Rural Development commissioned a forensic investigation into the farm.
Today, beneficiaries without ownership of land are still reliant on support by strategic partners chosen by a government more interested in helping its cronies advance themselves than interested in supporting beneficiaries achieve their dreams. Ask the beneficiaries of Nanda Farm in the X-River Valley how they benefited from their strategic partner.
In early 2017, the DA Shadow Minister of Rural Development, Thomas Walters, raised questions about the report in the National Assembly.
If all these allegations had to be true, if all these forensic investigations had to point to a pattern, then one has to ask the question, what is the core business of this department? Has it been captured?
Compiled by Nexus Forensic Services, the 200-page dossier throws an alarming spotlight on severe irregularities and non-compliance with the department's policies, and most damning of all, on the allegedly corrupt relationship between the strategic partners SAFE and Bono and officials in the Department of Rural Development. The report's allegations include irregular contracts signed between the department and SAFE and Bono, flawed processes followed on Novanda, corrupt relationships between Bono and officials, financial irregularities in the SAFE and Bono supply chain, and dodgy deals conducted on other farms involving SAFE and Bono.
Corruption is all over the place, and Nirvana is not spared of that.
In fact, the forensic investigation into Nirvana is one of several probes in recent years that has exposed burgeoning corruption in the sector. One of the more recent reports involved a farm called Bekendvlei in Limpopo.
A Latuli House official approached Mr. Nkwinti, who then directed him to the officials. Mr. Nkwinti was at this person's wedding a few weeks later. Mr. Nkwinti is saying he refers many people to his officials. He's not actually involved.
But in the draft report dated May 2016, auditing firm Deloitte found that Nkwinti should be charged with possible corruption for abusing his position as minister to influence the acquisition of Bekendvlei, which resulted in irregular expenditure amounting to 97,600,000 rand. But according to media reports, that finding was excluded from the final report.
We have to be aware here that the Director General for Rural Development and Land Reform has been suspended and is being accused of untoward deals with respect to farms. So who knows what's really going on there and who's at fault?
But do suspensions and dismissals of one or two officials really tackle the root of the corruption, or are they merely treating the symptoms?
Hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money has been spent on recapitalization, but it's going down the drain because the main beneficiaries of agricultural land reform are politicians. Through surrogates, they are taking as much land as possible, so a recap farm might be purchased for a friend or someone influential through a surrogate. But the funds earmarked for recap never reach the farms. As per instruction, they go into someone's pocket, and truthfully, there's no limit.
The recommendations of the Nanda forensic report go beyond the specific farm. They include criminal investigations be conducted on alleged corruption between officials of the department and SAFE and Bono. Civil claims be instituted for recovery of funds due to the department, and investigations be launched into other projects where SAFE and Bono are strategic partners. The report implicates two officials in the department in the alleged corruption: former Chief Director Babalwa Magoda and former Deputy Director Vusi Mashlangu. Special Assignment contacted Magoda and she expressed her desire to clear her name, but is prevented from doing so because she has been suspended and is currently facing a disciplinary hearing. Mashlangu has already been fired over the Bekendvleis scandal and did not respond to our request for comment.
Are you going to push for this report to be made public?
I most definitely want that to be public. It's definitely something we will be pushing for, and if this had to be indicative of a broader pattern, then we want this investigation and this type of investigation go far further than just one commercial partner of the state.
But tracing the complex value chain of the SAFE corporate family with its investment partners and maze of shelf companies could prove challenging. SAFE was founded in 1997 by Dutch nationals Irvin Boland and Anton de Vries in the wake of deregulation of the South African fruit industry.
The same actors are also major exporters from neighboring countries.
The multinational, whose holding company is in Mauritius, has become the 5th largest exporter of fruit in South Africa. Through Bono, which it formed in 2007, SAFE has gained scores of lucrative contracts on state-owned farms. The CEO of Bono is Evans Nevondo, whose Fresh Solutions Trust owns 50% of Bono. SAFE owns the rest. Special Assignment will continue these investigations through the grapevine and beyond.
We don't want to be seen as antagonists, towards the government. That's number one. And to us, it's very important. But if we are pushed into a corner where, we can't resolve issues, amicably, then we'll have to go to court because, in Latin, they say lex rex, which means law is king, as opposed to rex lex, meaning king is law.
We came onto this farm to do a job of working the land and become part of the community, to build relationships in the community, work with every farmer. We have a mission of building the economy of this place and of South Africa.